Hello, my friends. Hey, we're already in Chapter 4, Learning Plan 4. And I want to give you a little bit of an overview, as I always do. What I see in this Chapter 4, I know, thankfully, it's a lot smaller than Chapter 3 was. Learning Plan 3, as I told you, was really chock full of stuff. Learning Plan 4 is a little bit condensed, and it talks about several important things. They're listed in outline form on page 1 of Chapter 4. What will you find in here? Processes and systems, the scientific approach, tools for collecting data, tools for mapping processes, tools for looking at data relationships, and the 7-step method to problem solving. One thing that I will share with you, and it's kind of cool the way they did it, but there's a flap on the inside. Let me see if I can show you. There's a flap on the inside back cover. And if you open it all the way up, what you see there is you see that is the 7-step method. And the 7-step method has, along this left-hand side, it has the steps. Step 1, what's the project? 2, what's the current situation? 3, what's the cause or cause analysis? 4, what's the solution? 5, the results. 6, standardization. 7, future plans. Let me tell you a story about an actual student of ours who he was the night plant superintendent for Land O'Lakes down south of Green Bay on toward Sheboygan. And his it's a cheese plant, and what he said, we have probably 100 miles of pipe that transports water, milk, whey, all of these cheese related products, all under pressure. And these big semis coming in every day, dumping the fresh milk in, leaving with other byproducts of the cheese process. And it's just amazing. But here's what he said. He said, every single time you're in a cheese factory and you see a puddle of water on the floor, that's leaking. That's a leakage. And he said, we as a plant, we get charged from the city with all of the water that we use every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, but we also get charged from the wastewater we dump down the sewer every day, every week, every month, etc. So he said it's a lot of money being traded hands, and all of it's going out from us. So every time you see a puddle on the floor or dripping, it means that there's something wrong. It might be a joint. It might be a valve. It might be something of an aging process that is not fitting the way it used to. But in having 100 miles of pipes, I don't know, it'd be a good Google question. How many miles of pipes are there in the typical cheese factory? Because it's a lot. And he said, you'll just go around. And when we got in there, because I went to a meeting with him so that I could get an idea of what he was working on, you had to not only get into a clean scrub suit, and this is before the pandemic, but you also had to get contaminated free booties on your shoes. So everything was in a sterile environment. I mean, you can imagine what would happen if you got some dog doo-doo in in the cheese plant. I mean, it'd be bad. Anyway, so um, what they did is they formed a work team. They formed a formal work team to assess, uh, and they followed the 7-step method to problem solving. Step 1, what's the project? And the project is to identify every point and source of leakage in the entire plant. What was it? What's the current situation? Well, some of these have happened over time. Some of these are priorities. Some of these are low priorities. Some of these are, we've known about them for some time. It might be an aging valve that needs to be, but it's an expensive valve, and it's like closing down Highway 43. You never get to have a break because it's always busy. What caused this? Uh, what's the solution? And so what they'd have to do is they'd have to say, okay, we tagged it. We identified every single one in the plant with a red tag. And that red tag corresponded to a number, and that number corresponded to our chart. And we actually, if you remember last learning plan, we talked about high importance, low importance, and high risk and less risk. And in these situations, they did exactly the same thing to look at every single problem and assess whether it was in fact a major problem, a minor problem, an urgent problem, and put it into that appropriate category. Because you're not going to start, I mean, what would you do? Start at the closest room, start alphabetically, draw cards, have a lottery? No. It's going to have to be based on the vitalness of that and the severity of that leak. So they did that. They made a presentation to management and they said, this is a snapshot of what is, of exactly what is. And they diagrammed the plant and they had red markers around every joint or uh, elbow or valve that needed to have some work. And as it turns out, um, they said um, some of these need to be repaired on premises. Some of these need to be replaced. Some of these need to have parts from that we don't have. Some of this is going to require some mechanical redesign, on and on and on. And they laid out, from a scientific standpoint, they laid out the entire plan. When they did that, they took the data and presented it so that it was so easy to understand that executive leadership then had a chance to make strategic decisions based on that data and turned it into useful information. So that's what this chapter is about. They actually gave that group the go ahead and said, here's the going to be the order of our replacements, and here's the timetable, and here's the budget. Go. And they had a plan, they had a working plan that actually was phenomenal. But that is the classic example of using these tools to solve problems. All right. Then they get into things like delays, handling mistakes. They get into processes and systems. They get into feedback. They've got some processes here that are really pretty cool. And what they've done is they kind of diagram them. It's like the storyboard. It shows you the progression of things so that this leads to this, which leads to this, which leads to this. And it might branch out. It's really interesting. And this whole chapter gets into not only identifying who the customers are internally, but also the external customers and the suppliers and the supply chain distribution management team. So then it gets into the scientific approach. Very good information in this chapter. Then it talks about check sheets, stratification sheets. It talks about flow diagrams, concentration diagrams, It's so interesting to see these examples because what these are is these are storyboards that show what a mess. Ooh, what a nice process. All right, then it gets the top-down process map of writing a report. Very interesting. It's the process mapping. You can see basic and detailed process mapping, top-down process maps. Um, I just really this is so much more than just well we got together in a team and we all wasted some time. This is not teams in high school. This is not the yearbook club who's trying to figure out, what we do with the this group and that group and who gets represented and who doesn't. This is the productivity in the workplace. Really important stuff in the decision making processes. FEMA, failure modes and effects analysis, which that goes directly to our cheese plant. Tools for looking at data relationships, cause and effect, Pareto charts, time plots, distribution frequencies. Um, I was thinking about distribution frequencies the other day. And what was I thinking about? So I had this thought. And of course, it got a presence of consciousness because somebody drove by here with a truck that was just blasting their pipes. And I mean, it was like, uh, I'm not exactly sure. I didn't know if it was an airplane taking off or what it was, but I thought, what is in somebody's head that would cause them to rev their engine like that in a neighborhood to, I mean, make your windows rattle? Well, this is the distribution plot. And it's an interesting it gets into cause and effect. The Pareto chart, Pareto says basically it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of your accounts come from 20% of your population. So it's so interesting to see who are your better customers. A story about this, and I'll get back to the truck with the loud pipes. We had a guest speaker come in from the casino and from Oneida, and he was like vice president of marketing. And he said, "Well, I hate to tell you, but we don't care about your $100. We don't care about you coming in with $50 and splitting it with your spouse and saying, you take 50, I'll take 50, and let's meet back here at the bar and see if either one of us got lucky." He said, "We don't care. We don't care at all." He said, "Our target market are the high rollers." So somebody said, "Well, what constitutes a high roller?" And he said, "You wouldn't believe it." He said, "But we know everything about the high rollers. We know what they drive. We know it's a woman. She's about 43 years old. Her kids are grown. They live in some kind of a split level home. They've got these magazines on their coffee table. They do X number of trips a year, X number of trips a year or two out of country. And I mean, they have a deck. They may have a swimming pool. They definitely have a hot tub. And he goes through, I mean, he's got right down to the curtains in the bathroom. What they've done is they look at what their target market is, and then they personify that, and they get that person's picture on their medicine cabinet in the morning, and every decision they make from morning till night is about that person. What kind of music does she enjoy? What's the temperature that she enjoys? What are the issues with regard to smoke, no smoke? What alcohol? I mean, you name it. Everything. And it just really surprises me that they knew the correlations. I've been working on a project where I was talking about this is the awesome axis, and this is emotional intelligence, which is typically EQ. And what that means is that the higher you are in terms of emotional intelligence, the more awesome you are. So what you see is a perfect positive scatter plot that shows you cause and effect. The higher you are in intelligence, the more awesome you're. And of course, the lower you are in intelligence, the less awesome you are. I thought that's really, really a cool predictor. So I come all the way back to my issue of, hey, it's not, what is the predictor of why this person just cruised through my neighborhood, rattling my windows with their truck pipes? I want to know why. Now, you could say, well, there's no way to determine that. Could it be a high school graduate? Sure. Could it be a college graduate? Mm, could it be somebody that works in a factory? Mm, could it be related to income? I don't know. But isn't it interesting if we could speculate why does somebody have blow the knickknacks off the wall loud pipes? Well, for me, it's about, hey, look at me. And so this might be the wow, look. And what this might be is this might be the whoa, that's amazing. And this is not very much. And this is like, oh my God, I've got to turn and look. Who is this? Now, what I'm interested in is what's this factor? What if it's, what if it has something to do with self esteem? The higher your self esteem, the higher your, this is self esteem. The higher your self esteem, the lower your need for um, the wow. The lower your self esteem, the more. So ultimately, what this is somewhere in the middle, comes to here. Somewhere, this one is high in self esteem, goes here. I wonder if I got this wrong, I might. I think it goes, let me see, high. Oh, I can figure this out. Um, and this is what we would have some fun in doing in class because I'm looking at the higher your self-esteem, the lower your need to make wow. Higher is correlated to low. So that's there. And the lower your self-esteem is here. So I would say that that goes this way. The lower your self-esteem, the louder your pipes. I wonder. Or maybe it doesn't have anything to do with self-esteem. Maybe it has to do with, I don't know what it has to do with actually, because I don't have loud pipes. I haven't, I mean, I did maybe when I was, no, I never did. Well, I think it's just interesting, but this is what you're getting into here in chapter 4 is, your fish diagram, your scatter plots. Here it shows no relationship, a positive relationship, a negative relationship, which is this one, common scatter plots. And then it gets into the 7-step method of problem solving, which I'm a big fan of. And it's more the scientific method of helping us stay on track, which I think when you're looking at cause and effect relationships, when they determine that the cause of an aging pipe or joint or valve had to do with water on the floor, what an awakening. I didn't know that. Anyway, that is chapter 4. And I think it's pretty interesting. I hope you agree. Thank you so much, and I will turn this off if I can.